The Curse of Applejack's Tomb by TranscriptBrony. My life was normal, like any other. The only thing that was missing was the sight of the elements of harmony. Legends, heroes, almost gods of a time before me. When I was born, they were all gone, long gone. Only stories and monuments remain of their legacy they left behind. They all have burial grounds too, just scattered about. One of them changed my life forever, taking things I loved from me. Before I get there needs to be an understanding of how things happened. I learned of the heroic elements of harmony when I was a filly in school. My teacher, being a descendant of the creative Cheerly, knew much about them and what they did, which still many ponies did anyway. But oh my friends, the story she told! Their heroics saving the entire country many times over. Any villain who dares to cross their path was dispatched quickly and justly, with little or no collateral damage. We studied them and their doings for a span of 2 or 3 weeks. Eventually, the day came when we learned of their tomb locations. There was really only one located nearby, the tomb of Applejack. It supposedly lay just outside of Applejacks, which was now abandoned. The Apple family had moved its business elsewhere, some 5 years before we had this lesson. We heard that all of the tombs were very special in their own ways, but most special was Applejack's. It was rumored there was a curse laid upon it, but hidden deep within its walls. The story goes that Applejack, as she got older, became a bit obsessed and crazy. She became worried and contempt that some pony would steal the family cider recipe that was so successful. It could be said that jealousy got to her brain, and dear friends, maybe it did. The true reason was still unknown, but indeed she was buried with the recipe in her grasp, and it still laid with her in her death. The curse was rumored to have been placed by Celestia herself, but to this day she refuses to deny nor confirm anything affiliated with the topic. The curse was to fall on those who dared to try and take her beloved recipe. No pony knew what exactly would happen if they tried. The curse wasn't exactly specific, so no pony even tried to break into the tomb. Every student in the class was wide-eyed with jaws dropping as our fantastic teacher finished off the story of the tomb. That was the only topic spoken of for the rest of the day. We talked with our parents about it as well. Mine seemed happy that I liked what I learned so much, but from the look on their faces it seemed that they knew nothing about the tomb. My juvenile mind thought nothing about it, and I went back to babbling on about the topic. It was a hot topic in any conversation at school for the next few days. Then it vanished, like a fog raising. Every pony just forgot about it. Now it seems strange to me, but I know what happened. Our immature minds pushed it away for more exciting things to come. In fact, I didn't think about it for the rest of my school career. It had completely slipped my mind, lost forever in the vast void that is my imagination. Now, my early 20s began. Me, having graduated not long ago, decided to wander the country for a while. At the time I lived in Las Pegasus, but I wanted to see my native land a bit more than I had, possibly visit my old hometown of Ponyville again. My adventures brought me to every corner of the land. I discovered many diverse beings and creatures and wrote about them in a journal. A journal I would lose 5 months later. I would lose it during my visit in Ponyville, my fillyhood home. I went to every nook and cranny I could find in Ponyville, including the site of my old home, which was just an old foundation now. This pricked at my heartstrings. But I had things to see, my friends. There was still much more to see, mainly including old Appleacres. The picket fence that was once the marker of the Apple family land still remained, although its white paint was long faded away. The gate, wide open, inviting all adventurers inside, which, my friends, was me. I wanted to see what hidden treasures may lay inside these abandoned lands. My first sight was the immense stretch of apple trees that still inhabited the area quite densely. Most were dead, but some still had golden delicious on them, which almost hypnotized me, myself being a bit hungry. I pushed away my thoughts, though, because I had a goal: to find something interesting in these old lands. I ventured through the vast fruity forest and found virtually nothing, which disheartened me a bit, but my search continued. In lands that big, there had to be something. I kept looking for hours until I saw it. Just over the treetops I could see a high tower, and from what I could see it seemed to be made of stone. This interested me highly, of course, so I moved towards its strange structure. I pushed my way through the highly dense undergrowth and made my way towards the tower. Upon arriving, I quickly realized it wasn't just a tower, but the whole temple-like building. I stood with jaws dropped as I realized what I had found. The very tomb of Applejack, the element of honesty, lay right here in front of my young eyes. It seemed to be built somewhat like a temple indeed. From where I stood, I could see the entrance, which was most likely the exit as well. The tomb's monumental tower rose 50 feet into the air. I was in awe at the sheer architecture and genius of this tomb. The stories my dear old school teacher had told me were fantastical, but nothing compared to seeing it right in front of you. My mind had hatched a great idea. I should enter the tomb. I trotted up to the entrance, which were two great doors some 20 feet high, or plainly, really gigantic doors. They were quite easy to open though, which was surprising to me. Ever still, my friends, I entered the tomb with excitement in my heart and curiosity in my brain. I noticed that the tomb had been overtaken by some slight plant growth. There were vines dangling here and there, but you could still see anything in the tomb quite well. Oh, the beauty, my friends! Crystal apples lined the very wall that led you to the burial chamber. Stories of the great Applejack and her friends were inscribed on the walls as well, depicting their great lives in great detail. The torches inside were lit by an undying magic that was created to make the everlasting light, just perfect for the tomb of a hero. I soaked every detail in with my eyes and reveled in its sheer beauty. I was dumbstruck for possibly the first time in my life. Then I arrived at the burial chamber, and oh my friends, I began to cry as I was in the presence of one of the greatest heroes in our country's history. Right in front of me, some 50 feet away, was the very sarcophagus of Applejack herself. 2 giant crystal apples lay on the wall behind the coffin to add to the scene that stood before me. I had to see the body. Yes, my friends, I did defile the grave of Applejack. To this day, I regret what I did, but I did it to learn and to see the hero for myself. I opened the coffin lid, and there lay the bones of Applejack, still with her hat on. She was surrounded by incredibly rotten apples, most likely fresh when buried with her. Her hat had many holes in it, and a few cobwebs hung from her skull. The most interesting thing was that this old piece of parchment that was wedging in between her forelegs. I told myself that I had to see what secret that paper possibly held. I delicately pulled the paper from her legs and opened it up with the greatest care, right then and there, in front of the coffin. I was looking right at the secret Apple family cider recipe. Once again my jaw dropped. I sprinted out of the burial chamber, along through the long hallways, and back into the orchard. Days passed from that experience that I had, and still the recipe in my hands. I must say, my dear friends, that I did not notice the sign that told of the curse inside the tomb. I had completely forgotten it from my memories as well. My young mind had no idea what I had gotten myself into. Anyways, I had no idea what I was going to do with it old parchment. I sat for many days pondering what exactly I could do with it. Then, one day, as I sat on my motel bed, the idea hit me. I could make some cider and try and make some money. I got to work on making a small batch from the golden nectar. The list was very bizarre, and it took a while to acquire all the ingredients, but after 5 days of looking, I had all I needed. I spent most of a Thursday chopping and stirring and tasting. The cider was indeed tasty, in fact, virtually a perfect beverage. When I thought I was ready, I set up a table in the center of Ponyville and began my business. I sat there for a couple of hours with not a single customer. My hopes were just about at the lowest when finally I got my first customer. It was a yellow mare with a green mane and tail. I did never learn her name. She simply claimed that she was dreadfully parched and demanded a glass of cider. I gave it to her, and she laid some bits on the table. At first, she just sipped at it once, and stood staring at me. I was confused and became a bit frightened. Had I mixed it wrong? I got my answer when she chucked the rest of it, and then ran off into the distance. What the hay had just happened? That question too, my dear friends, was answered the very same day. The mare had run off and tell all of her friends that there was a fantastic cider being sold in the center of town. Within minutes, I had a line that stretched for 500 feet. I sold out the few gallons I had very quickly, but I promised I would return the very next day with even more cider. Most every pony was very satisfied with the cider and claimed it was the best since the apple families. I never mentioned that it was really their recipe, and my mind became obsessed with gaining and profit. I had the same turnout the next day, only this time the line became a bit longer near the end of the day. How many ponies lived in Ponyville now? I made a profit over 1,000 bits just off of the cider. I was amazed and very, very happy. This pattern lasted for a few months more. I became the richest pony in town and decided to settle down in Ponyville once again. One day, I received a very important visitor. There was a knock on my door, and when I opened, there was a business pony from Philadelphia standing right in front of me. He introduced himself, his name slips my memory, and I invited him inside. We sat for 2 hours talking, mainly about business. He introduced a plan that would soon make me a millionaire. He proposed that I make my cider a business, which had now become almost nationally famous, a full-scale business operation. The idea of the factory didn't appeal to me at first, but I eventually agreed. By the end of that year, there was a full-scale cider factory within sight of Ponyville. Getting workers wasn't hard at all. Many ponies were interviewed to work there. Within 1 month of opening the factory, we had produced some 500,000 bottles of cider. I still never mentioned the recipe not truly being mine. I never had any trouble showing the recipe on label though. The Apple family, sadly, no longer existed. Their last member had passed away one previous year. My parents moved back to Ponyville from Manhattan to enjoy the spoils of life with me. We embraced the very second we saw each other, and they moved right across from my manor. They indeed had their own manor as well. Oh, my friends, how my business grew! Soon we became the leading cider provider for the country, and then we went international. We hit #1 internationally not long after. My life was set for the rest of my life, which had barely begun in the first place. I slowly forgot about the original recipe, which still however resided in my office, locked away tight. The next 5 years went by fast. My millions became billions, and then almost trillions. I was now at age 28 and practically ruled the entire world. It was fantastic, my friends. I was on cloud 9. I never had any financial problems with the company or in my own private life. I had not gotten married yet, even though wherever I roamed, beautiful mares eyed me from every corner of the street. My parents remained very, very proud of me and still enjoyed the spoils they received as a gift from me. I loved my parents dearly, which makes the last part of my story even harder to say. The curse, my friends, still followed me. I did not know of the hell that would soon plague me. Oh, how stupid and juvenile I had been to defile the grave of such high importance in history. I would soon pay dearly for my error, and it would end me through and through. At the beginning of the 6th year of business, I decided to take a walk on one of the oldest paths remaining in the town. This path had been trodden by the very elements themselves, as they went off to fight the second invasion of Discord and its chaos. It was very quiet, really tranquil and beautiful. Nature surrounded me on every side, and I smiled the entire way down the path. Eventually, the path came up to an open plain just outside of town. At a curve lay one of the oldest benches in the land. I came up to this ancient bench and looked upon it. I thought of its history, and whoever may have possibly sat there. Questions spawned in my head like crazy. Then I felt a pain in my chest. The pain grew fast and attacked fierce. I clenched at my chest and began to froth at the mouth. The searing hot pain took me over, and I fell beside the bench. My world had gone black. I woke up, my friends, in the same place, but I seemed a bit higher. I did not know what had happened, but I could not speak a single word. I also couldn't move. I was dreadfully scared. What had happened to me? A few days later, it dawned on me what I now was. It had to do with the curse, of which I remembered with fear. News must have gotten out that I was missing, for search parties eventually reached my position. They would always come up towards me and look at me, with great confusion, and then buck me violently in great anger. They would scream and ask where the hay I was. Oh, my friends, how I wish I could have cried out to them, but I couldn't. How I wish that I could have moved towards them, but I couldn't. How I wish that I could cry tears, but I couldn't. You see, my friends, the curse was strange, yet completely effective. I stood frozen in the middle of the plain, as what is known to ponies everywhere, as an apple tree. Yes, I had turned into the very thing that had been a big part in my business story. It is not a funny thing, my friends. No longer can I cry, no longer can I laugh, no longer can I talk, no longer can I move, no longer can I sleep, no longer can I enjoy my wealth, no longer could I enjoy the strong love of my parents, whom, most likely, bless their poor souls, sent out the search parties. I can only remember and view the world with invisible eyes. I do not know how I've communicated this story with you, but I implore you to learn from my failure. I do not know my name anymore, nor do I remember how I looked. All I have are old memories and the long-lasting form of an apple tree. You don't really know what you have until it's gone. How I wished I could just speak again. How I wish I could just see my parents again. The small things are quite big after all. Money is not everything in the world. In the end, my friends, I remain a tree and suffer for what I had done. I defiled a grave to make a profit, which is an incredible sin of which I must pay and will continue to pay for. I have been in this state of being for over 25 years now, wishing I was able to shed a tear, but I can't. The search parties still come, but they never think twice about the lonely apple tree. The end.